Faroe Islands in general are just impressive.
The success of the national team is because the best players are going abroad.
It's very nice to see countries like Italy coming up.
Ball across the Dylan Nahi, double in flight. Oh, what a start!
Into the net.
She does it again.
Yes! And Víctor are the champions of Europe. To come up with something here. She has a game. The keeper. What a comeback!
Ladies and gentlemen, it is finally time to talk handball again for one of our beloved summer episodes, and it's great to be sitting here with the three of us because we want to talk about the small nations, and that's why we invited Víctor Tomàs to talk.
Is it really great to be here, Bengt? Is it really great to be here?
Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But actually, it is a movement that has been going on in the past years that the smaller nations are coming up. So Austria had an amazing Euro 2024. The Faroe Islands had their significant impact. Portugal is on the rise. And all those nations that are suddenly starting to build up a handball philosophy in the country. And I really like to see it. Martin, out of all those small countries, and even more than them, Italy and stuff like that, which one do you like the most at the minute? Which one do you find is the most interesting one to watch?
Well, first of all, for me, there's a difference between Faroe Island and then the next level would be Austria, and then the level after that would be Portugal. Because Portugal are for me on a top level, but it's also in terms of maybe speaking about how big is the sport in the country, and so in that case I would say Faroe Island because we spoke about it in an earlier episode, the population in the city, not in the city, in the country, and then
it basically is the same.
Yeah, the size of the country is a city. No, and then compared to how many players that are actively playing, and let's have in mind it's not only on the men's side, it's also on the women's side that they're actually performing very well. And we could also, into that consideration, take a country like Iceland, also been performing for many years on the men's side very well. On the women's side, always, close to being at championships, but Faroe Islands in general are just impressive. And one thing is the team, but I mean, it's just the unity with the spectators that they go with them everywhere. But I know also that when you look at the players, like that player, cousin is that, and the other one is standing, uncle is in the stands, and it's like very familiar up there that everybody knows everybody, and someone has a relation in between to someone in the stands or on the court. So I think that's super impressive with Faroe Island, what they are doing. And smaller nations, I would also say Italy is building up, because into this consideration we have to have in mind that their own domestic leagues are not leagues that we're speaking about when we talk about top leagues in Europe and around the world. So that's making it the most impressive. But Faroe Island is a history for themselves. They are the darlings.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's always nice to seeing them play and seeing basically the whole country travel with them, and it's always super nice to see. But yeah, as you just said, there are a couple of more nations on the rise, and I was wondering, where is the recent success coming from, Víctor?
That's difficult to say, because if we speak about smaller nations in terms of population, the one that I'm most impressed by far is Denmark, because they are, how many millions are you?
5.5.
Yeah, 5.5, and both men and women teams are top of the top.
That one was for the introduction, because I called Spain a small nation, right?
No, but then also Norway, for example. They are also 5-point-something million people. But then if it's in terms of handball history, Faroe Island, Italy, and to your question, I don't know that much the insights of the organization, how the country works with the trainings and the programs. So I don't know how the handball system works in those countries. But I think it's a mix of good work and be lucky that the generation of players that are playing together at the same time, they are good enough to be able to reach these levels of competition. And in this case, we are seeing it now in Italy, because Austria Yes, the last Euro in Germany, they were performing in a very, very high level. But I would say, in terms of history, there is more history than in Italy and Faroe Island, for example. And I think that, you know, those two nations, Italy and Faroe Island, it's very exciting to see them. But on top of that, it's Portugal. At this moment, Portugal, in my opinion, it's very important that the three top clubs of the country, Benfica, Sporting de Lisboa, and Porto, they have handball as one of their main sports as a club, and they invest money, they invest in coaches, and they are getting ready the young players to go up and play with the national team.
But I mean, you just said that, for instance, for Austria, it's like they have always been there in handball. They have a bigger handball history than, let's say, Italy. But don't you feel like the successes of the Austrian national team and of Austrian players in big European clubs, they have become more, so they went up?
Yes, for sure. And you know, maybe one of the problems that Austria might have in the future is that the best players are going abroad to play other leagues. You know, it's already happening, and there is this problem that maybe the success of the national team is because the best players are going abroad, and then they evolve as a players. So, of course, then it's as a country how to do it to keep your talent, your local talent in your league. So actually, it's very difficult to analyze why these nations are growing, but one of the reasons might be that the best players of each nation that we are talking about now, they are going abroad to play other leagues.
Yeah. Martin, you look like you
yeah,
want
it's
to add up
just
on that?
there are different various reasons. If you ask me, for example, let's say Denmark, we invented the sport, so obviously it's a big thing in Denmark. Then if you, as Victor also said, it's important that it's a main sport, and also with sporting, that's the main sport for them. Besides football or soccer, or for whoever who's listening.
It's football.
Yeah,
It's football.
Okay. And because in Denmark it's a big sport to play handball, and for example, let's put it in Norway, it's also a big sport. They also have skiing and other stuff. Compared to that, we don't have that in Denmark, so that's also something to do with a culture thing.
You have handball and rain.
Yeah, and actually we are pretty okay at some other sports, but that's for a different podcast.
Ping pong and badminton.
Badminton we're very good at. But then also, as Victor said, it's obviously also generations that you're very lucky with some generations coming in. And then it's for me it's a two mixed topic about you want your own players to stay in your domestic leagues because you want your own league to be very good. If you can do that, then in general it would increase the level of the handball within the country and the awareness. And it's also important for the smaller kids to have someone to look up to, role models. And for how long can a player from Austria stay in that league? Eventually, when they're good enough, they will be picked up by, let's say, the German league, or they go to the French league, or wherever they go. Which is also a good thing, because in order for them to increase the national team, then they need the best players to play abroad. But if they want to increase the level of the domestic league, then they obviously also need to stay there for a longer period of time. But as Victor said, the most important thing for me is that obviously some players from the Faroe Islands, they go to Denmark, where they actually come early age and study in Denmark and go to college and stuff like that, and go into a system where it's integrated to play handball whenever you go to school also. So we have, I think Skipper Goethe played in a team called Skanderborg Aarhus. We had them in the European League at a few years back also. And when they stay there and then they move abroad, we have Paul Mitun also playing in Sävehof. He's going to GOG next season. So it's super important for them to have players go out. And then there's a lot of other players also from Faroe Island playing in the second league in Denmark and playing in, I think, in Norway also. And to that, then to increase, then obviously it's a matter of luck and generations, but then to have players abroad that will increase the level of the national team, and that's where we are at the moment for for Faroe Island, because it's not only Mitro and Skipagøtto, it's also Heiko Vestoff Teigum. They have Pauli in goal, who also used to be in the French league. He's now in the Danish. He plays for Høj, if I remember correctly, that just moved up. So, they need to have players there. So, for me, it's various different reasons, but it's very nice to see countries like Italy coming up, because I don't think handball in Italy is the biggest, is obviously not the biggest, but a big sport. There are other ones, so we need those countries also to be there. And we like the Cinderella stories. We like when teams like Austria or Italy do well. For me, the last European Championship, Italy was the darlings in Denmark. They impressed everyone the way that they play. And they actually also, we see it with Eisenach, they play with 4 behind. Speaking about, we just had a 7 versus 6 also episode. They go out and play with a line player, no line player, and then play like... That's interesting to see different types of playing. We always speak about the Scandinavian style, the Spanish style, and then, we see a different one now. I like that perspective also.
Yeah, and I mean, talking about Italy, they have a wonderful national team coach, Bob Hanning, which you guys either have already heard the episode or will be hearing an episode with him. It was a great one too, because of course we have been talking about Italy and how that one will develop, and it's an interesting project coming up. I feel like it's a general movement, seeing Ika go into Austria to train the national team, and now to see Bob Hanning to go to Italy. What you just said, Victor, was that the players, if they want to get better, they need to leave the country and get better in the stronger leagues to lift the level of the national team. But I'm always wondering, isn't there a way that can work together so that an increased level of the national team will eventually lift up the level in the league too?
It's difficult because if you are born in a country without handball culture, it's very difficult as a league to take advantage of your national team success. You have to work very well because in our case in Spain, I have the feeling that the national team is followed by a lot of people, but then when the league is coming back, people is somehow losing interest. And
actually, that's the same in Germany.
Yeah, they like to follow the national team, but the domestic league, they lose interest. And how to change that, I don't know. It's very difficult. And what is more important for the nations to keep the level up is that kids are signing in for handball, and it's very, very difficult to do that without political help. So it should be like that the countries take advantage of the success of the national team, but in the other hand, I think it's very difficult to do it with a big organization and the system behind you.
Yeah, and it's just not something you're going to do within a couple of years. It's something that takes a long time. It's not like you can just be lucky to have or good to have a generation like the Faroe Island and then the domestic league will be super good. That's not how it works, It takes a lot of time and to build up, and then maybe you also need foreigner players from different other countries to go to the league in Austria to play there, for example. But then you also have a tendency often to see that players that played abroad before Arne Palmersen went to Veszprem, he went to the Icelandic league. And then you have other players going back to the country where they come from, and that's obviously also going to give that league a lift. But it's just interesting to see what happens. And as Victor says, it's more than just handball. It's also political reasons. And do they want to invest in a sport like handball in their country if the sport is not that big? But also, as you said, with Italy, we saw it with the is it called Mignon brothers, Ebner in goal, and Leo Pratner. Yeah, he now plays in Füchse Berlin. I know he played in Germany before also, but it's
Ballingen.
Yeah, it's very nice to see.
In Spain, he played in Cuenca.
Okay. That I actually didn't know, but I knew about Ballingen, but didn't Cuenca. But I like those kind of stories. They are very important, but also for the country itself to I think for the next generation, to see that somebody made it to a big country like Germany is not only about having role models, but they can actually go somewhere else. Because I can say from a Danish perspective, it's not that many Danish players that go to Italy to play, for example, in their league. I remember myself, I had an offer or two, but my agent told me it's difficult, Martin, because Danish players don't go there, and it's more expensive for the Italian clubs to bring in a Scandinavian player than take a very good Italian player and then pay him the same. So yeah, obviously it's for different reasons. It's very nice to live in Sicily compared to Denmark, probably. But that's a different topic. But in general, get the players abroad will increase the national team level. If they stay in the country, it will increase the domestic leagues. That's how it is. And then it's a matter of when to go abroad and when not to, in order to. Yeah.
It's a difficult balance.
Yeah, it is.
And when to come back. I mean, there's always the option when you had a great career that in the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years you go back into your local league and into your domestic league and play over there for a little bit and train the young ones and lift the level for the upcoming generation there.
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, sorry.
When to come back, there is several reasons. There is sport reasons, family reasons, and economical reasons.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because for example, in Denmark, if you live 10 years abroad and you go back, then you pay less taxes when you come back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So all these kind of things, players are thinking about it.
Yeah, sure.
They are in Denmark for sure. That's for sure. And also, you also seen the last couple of years that the amount of games also being played in the Bundesliga compared to the Danish league, to go abroad and play in Göpping is maybe more difficult to play in Denmark against one of the lower teams there. And the travel is not that long. You get more family time. And let's be honest. Let's say, for example, Rasmus Lauge. He plays in Kiel and he played in Veszprém. Does that mean that he still doesn't have the level to play in the Danish league? No. He can still maybe not be the level he was for 8-7 years ago, obviously, because he's getting older. He's still an amazing player and can contribute to the Danish league, which will give the Danish league a boost in terms of quality. It's the same with Arne Palmerson. When he stopped, he went back to Iceland. Does that mean that maybe he's on the edge of internationally, hitting his, can you say, the amount that where he can contribute, but he can still contribute in the Icelandic league, and that's a difficult balance. It can be for different reasons. Family reasons are definitely also one of them, if from what I can hear from what the players say, and then this 10-year rule does also play a role, obviously.
I mean it does play a role because we're not there where football is at, where you can talk about, am I earning 2 million or 20 million in a year? So that when you play 10 years abroad, that you for sure don't need to work anymore for the rest of your life. So it is a topic for those handball players too. Yeah.
And also transport. In Denmark, you go by buses to go to a game. You don't fly to games, or maybe if you play from Aalborg in Copenhagen.
Yeah, because it takes like 7 minutes to go from coast to coast.
But I mean, for the players to say to my family, hey, I'm going to be away for 26 hours or 8 hours.
Yeah,
it has some. I can get home and put my kids to bed. I can be there for my kids for a longer period of time. They're young and stuff. It means a lot for the players. Yeah. And that's the next topic. Feel good outside the court will also make you probably perform better on the court.
Yeah.
So
yeah, true that. I was wondering about it because the competition is increasing in the level below, let's say the top level, where we can put, for instance, France, Denmark, Spain, Germany, Sweden, and all those nations. But what does that mean for the likes of Croatia, Norway, and all these nations that have been there for a while, but they are always on the edge of, let's say, a semi-final? What does that movement mean for those countries? Is it just more competition for the same amount of spots? Or is it, they're getting better, so we need to step our game up to keep our position?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that more competition is good for the sport. It makes it more global. It makes it bigger, in my opinion. And the sport is going around. It's cyclic a little bit, We have been living a French generation that it was unbeatable at that moment. Now we are living the Danish generation, probably, with France being close to them, but in my opinion Denmark is a little bit ahead of them. And then, somebody else is going to come, because in 90s we were leaving the Swedish generation. So the sport is a little cyclic, but I think that the more countries come from behind to push and pressure, the more historical nations being up there fighting for the medals, that's really good for the sport.
Yeah, but I know we joke about it a lot because it's Victor, but it's maybe also a little bit thing that happened with the Spanish national team. That generation changed with you had the Interias, you had Victor himself, Aguinagalde, maybe now it's Maqueda is also at his age where he's maybe considering retiring from the national team. And all those players, now I started mentioning Canellas also for that sake. So they have a generation change maybe for younger players also to come up. You will see at Barcelona, Sikosa, we see Barofet in Melsungen also doing well. That those are players for the future also, and maybe that's what happened with Spain, that the generation change is, that's a matter of timing, and whenever you do it, there's no sure that Spain is still a top national team, and they will also come back and still be, where we don't joke with Victor about them having close games, because it's just Spanish playing style, and there are plenty of good Spanish players. The youth team is probably one of the best there ever was in the ever history, I can say, with the Sikusa brothers and Barofet, and know many of other players than I do from that team. That is unbelievable strong, I can tell. So it's just a matter of time before they are mature enough to play for the senior team, if you can put it like that. So generation changes and other things are playing a role whenever it comes to what Victor just said. And
yeah, and I mean, I like the topic of a generational change that you're bringing up, because you're working as a player's agent. Do you feel like your work has changed or will change when that movement keeps on going, with the smaller nations rising, and eventually the levels in the leagues are increasing too?
Well, the more markets are open to work with a good level of handball and economy, it's better for the sport, in my opinion. And what I wouldn't like to happen with handball is that agents are chasing 12-year-old kids playing handball, because I think it's not the core of the sport. Kids in that age, they have to enjoy, and that's it. They have to play and enjoy and grow without thinking about anything else than having fun playing handball. But I think that it's good for the sport and for the business, in my case, that other nations are growing, and there is more and more players able to play in the big leagues and in other leagues that are growing quite fast.
I actually totally agree also the part about the younger players, because were we able ourselves to decide when we were 12 years old what to do with our life? We were just enjoying playing handball, and we just want to do what we love, and for that over everything else. And I mean, it can sometimes for a young player to be tempted to say, let's say if Kiel wants a player, for them to, I want to go to Kiel, but is that the right time to go to Kiel if you're 16 years old, to leave your home country, maybe if you come from Spain, and to go to Germany, to live in Germany without your parents or any? It's not that easy. But for the player at such a young age, it's very, very, very tempting. And how can I say no to Kiel? I don't know if they come back in 2 years, if I had an injury and stuff like that, but maybe it's the wrong timing for them. But to tell a young player that was also difficult. But I agree with Victor, but I also think that we kind of seeing a little bit of a tendency that some clubs signing younger and younger players because of competition maybe, and obviously also because if you are a local player from Germany and you raised in Kiel, obviously Kiel want that player because he took all the way up. And then for me it's a different story, because he took his way up in Kiel compared to if then they see a player in Denmark and say, hey, we want you to come to Kiel.
Well, Denmark wouldn't even be that bad, looking at the distance.
That's true.
The thing is that there is some clubs that they have a very good structure, and they work and take care of the young players very, very well. putting also a lot of focus on the studies. And I'm going to name two of those clubs. Barcelona is one of them. Berlin is another one. That they work very, very good with young players. And sometimes it's a good move with 14-year-old to move there if you really love it, you know, but not because an agent is behind you and wants you to move there. It should be a family option, you know, as a small kid having fun playing handball, because then the environment that you are gonna go in is different, you know. You are entering in a professional club in the youth teams, but inside a professional atmosphere. And you really need to be ready, and nobody knows if a girl or a boy is ready for that better than the parents.
Yeah.
And studies are important, actually, to say. It's super important. Even though that when you're young, you think, I can live from playing handball, but there will eventually injuries, or you at one point you're getting too old to play handball. You need something to bounce back. Whatever it is, that's something for you to figure out. But schools is also important, even though that the only thing you want to do when you're 14 years old is play. I want to skip math. I would just want to go play.
You heard it, kids? Don't skip classes.
No, but I mean, that's how I know for myself. If I had math or handball, I would take handball any day.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually bringing me over to my last question, because Victor just touched that topic. What did you think you would become when you were 12 years old? I mean, for you, probably you were in the direction of handball?
For me, it was just one thing, to be a professional handball player.
Martin, how about you?
It was actually the same, even though that I was no kind of a big talent. We were still competing for the Danish championship at the youth teams, but for me it was the same. Like when I had the chance to play with the seniors when I was 16, 17, and to choose between training with the seniors in the best Danish league or have an extra hour of math, I just went. And for me, I remember that some teachers told me, it's really important, Martin, as I just said, to go to school, but say, but I just want to be a handball player, and I know I will. You know, I was very confident back then, and so it was kind of, I also only knew that, but sometimes you don't really know what it takes also. You have to remind yourself it's not just because you're good at a young age and because I had a size. That's very beneficial at an early age. So you still need to put in some work. It's not only, and that's sometimes as a young kid, when you're good, you don't always remind yourself that hard work makes you stay above the others. Yeah, that's what we sometimes joke whenever you are in the gym, you have to do 2 extra sets for Arnold Schwarzenegger, because then you're 2 sets above the other ones.
2 sets for Arnold Schwarzenegger. All right, that's the word to close down the podcast. But I'm actually interested, what do you guys think out there? Which nation will it be at the EHF Euro 2026 that will surprise us all? Will it be Italy? Will it be Austria again? Will it be some other nation that all of us don't think about right now? Slovenia, maybe? So there are some interesting teams to look out for, so let us know in the comments. And apart from that, we'll see you next time when it's time to talk handball again.
Ball across to Dylan Nahi, double in flight. Oh, what a start!
Into the net.
She does it again.